Hey guys, it's VaulSC here. Hope that you're having a good week. I'm going to be talking to you about a game between OSS, the Aleph sectorial, and vanilla Haqqislam. This will be on the mission Recovery, which is one of my custom missions that I brought out, I think it was last year during one of my TTS campaigns. It is my version of Corvus Belli's Capture and Protect. So this is the one where there's going to be a beacon on each player's deployment zone, right at the 12-inch line in the middle of the deployment zone. And the idea will be to, at some point in the game, go over to their beacon, the opponent's beacon, and capture it, and hopefully hold on to it. Corvus Belli's original mission said that you only really counted as scoring if you actually held on to that beacon at the end of the game, which made it much better for the player going second and therefore having the last turn. So what I did was I modified that a little bit and said that if you actually hold on to it and you still have it at the end of any particular turn, you get 2 objective points, and that allows for somebody moving in, grabbing it, moving it back a bit, and actually holding on to it without being shot by an arrow. And then even if your opponent actually comes in their turn and takes it back off you, you still actually are rewarded for the effort you put into getting it for a period of time. So that made it a bit of a better mission. Since then, Corvus Belli have brought out N4 and a newer version of Capture and Protect, which has improved somewhat. There's sort of game round scoring and so forth. But I still prefer my version of the mission just because it really does truly reward players for having a go and forces the reactive player to actually commit a little bit more in terms of stopping their opponent from actually grabbing it and surviving an arrow shot. So you have to put more arrow pieces up if you want that to happen. Ultimately, though, a lot of these games come down to just the designated target or capturing the antennas, so there are ways to have tie breaks in there, but it's quite reasonable also to try and go all in and to capture that enemy beacon and get away with it. So talking about the lists now, I am running an OSS list. I think OSS is really quite up my alley and good for my style. I also like OSS because in my particular country, the people who organize tournaments here and set up terrain don't really do a very good job at having a decent amount of density on the tables. They're a little bit too open, and what that results in is tables with big sniper towers in deployment zones and, you know, huge wide open fire lanes. And so some people like that, some people think that's a better way of playing infiNity, but for me it kind of forces me to stick to the factions that really punch hard in the long range attrition game. And OSS does that best, in my opinion, because the Dakini Link team can be buffed up with a lot of things that make them extremely accurate when it comes to shooting, but when they get shot, it's very easy to repair them. You've got remote presence, you're prone while you're unconscious. Then, of course, there's the Marut, the very best OSS list that I'm able to write at the moment, and honestly can't think of any OSS list that's overall, in terms of all comers, better than this one. Includes the Marut, just because it's such a solid tag, and there are so many things in N4 that benefit this tag. So the need for some sort of MSV is important. The need for armor-piercing active turn HMG with high ballistic skill is important. A really good arrow is important. The ability to have remote presence, that's important too. High willpower lieutenant, having Strategos, having chain of command able to support it, things like that. Just make it such a powerful tag, and for 99 points it's very affordable. So one reason why I play OSS sometimes is just to benefit this tag and make use of it. You can play it in vanilla Aleph, but the thing is, because you're taking so many cheap things to support it anyway, you may as well have those cheap things linkable. And the need for something like a Myrmidon to throw smoke for it just isn't as great as your need to have the Dakini Link team. So this is just my opinion, remember. Other people do very well with vanilla Aleph and have other ways of playing OSS, but for me, this is just really the optimal way for me to do it. If I'm playing in some sort of event, I'm definitely going to have a secondary list that will be running Parvati or a lot of Nagas. Just something that I can use if it really does happen to be a more dense table where you're not going to get a lot of long-range shots with your Dakinis or your Marut, so we'll have other options and tools there. But the Marut's just such a strong piece with the way crits work now and with the way that a lot of people take very powerful snipers and missile launchers in link teams. The Marut's just such a good way of dealing with that. You come up against a Kamau sniper, he's hitting on 16s with 2 dice, you're on 15s with 4 dice, but if he hits you, he's probably using armor piercing, otherwise the double action's not going to cut through the armor 8. You've got a whip 15 engineer there to repair it. You know, it's got the remote presence, so it's not going to be going away anytime soon. So the Marut is just one of the things in the game that handles that kind of enemy piece very, very effectively. And then when it comes to your enemy's Marut or Sphinx or Armand Lemuet or anything like that, it's just such a useful piece, such a dominant piece for dealing with that. Factions like Ariadna and Haqqislam sometimes won't have a decent gun to take this guy down, but what we're going to talk about next is my opponent's list, and we'll see if he does in fact have those tools. And the very first thing that we're going to even talk about here is the Azrael. My opponent deciding to go for it. Now, if you like the miniature, and if you think it looks cool, don't hesitate to purchase this piece. I don't think that this is like the best thing about Haqqislam, but given that they added continuous damage, given that you don't have a lot of other really good heavy machine gun options in this faction, and given that it has armor piercing, it actually is reasonable. 40 points is, again, very reasonable. Overall, the meta at the moment really is more around the Asawira and taking the AP Spitfire Asawira in particular. That has just so many things going for it that it's a better value piece than this. But if you want to try this, it's going to be decent in some games. My only warning is that there are going to be times where this guy just finds his Blister Skill 13 is too low, he doesn't have any MSV or any mods of his own, so when he's trying to crack something like a Knight of Justice missile launcher or a Grenza sniper that's in a 5-man link team, even just a Tanko missile launcher, and he just flubs the roll and gets shot, you're going to sort of be feeling a little bit uncomfortable about him. You play 10, 20 games in a row, there are definitely going to be a reasonable number of games where he performs and he finds the right target, but there are also going to be a lot of games where he just doesn't really find the right opportunity, or he gets a bit unlucky, or he's just outclassed in the shooting range scheme of things, whereas the Asawira is just going to be such a valuable piece in so many more games. Having said that, he's run into a perfect opportunity to use this piece. The Marut is the kind of opponent that this guy just really thrives against, because the Marut doesn't have any mimetism, he's got armor piercing, and the Marut, although it's normally quite resilient with remote presence and being repaired and everything, the continuous damage is going to force a lot of additional armor saves, which can wipe the Marut out, which is where the Azrael really shines, so just happens to be in a good matchup for it. The Mukhtar, as you guys can see, he's named his list 13 attack vectors. This is actually his list. My opponent is the kind of person that watches my bat reps and likes to send in his army code after the game, which is very helpful. So he's just explained here with his title of his list that he's got a lot of different things it can attack with. So the Mukhtar is one of them. It's not as good as it was in N3, but still very valuable, and it's just nice to have something that has MSV2. Haqq's a heavy rocket launcher. This is, again, great to hollow mask as something your opponent's not expecting, even if it's like a war core. I think in my opponent's case, he had a Lasik sniper or something like that. Gulam NCO is just a way to use the Lieutenant's Order if you're not going to be doing anything with it. My opponent's thought here is that since he's got a spare SWC, he's popped this in because once per turn, he could just use the Lieutenant Order to fire a long-range grenade on somebody's head, and if he happens to roll like a 1 or a 2 or whatever he needs to get that crit, or that hit, then he might actually kill something with it, so it's better than having a dead Lieutenant Order. Zulika is just one thing that Corvus Belli's really dropped the ball on. It's just a model that they've given too many buffs and abilities to without increasing its points, and that kind of makes things boring because every single Haqqislam player now has this piece in their list. She's just got too many abilities. She's got the +1 burst on Breaker Pistol, which I believe works in close combat for some reason, and the same with the Flamethrower, and she's still got smoke, and she's got the speed, and she's only 11 points, and shock immunity. It just gets a bit crazy, so nobody ever leaves this model at home that I know of. Basic Flash Pulse, Fide, again, one of the attack vectors. Same with the Bereed, the Haq's Lieutenant, obviously with NCO there. And of course, you can hide your Lieutenant by turning it into something that looks like something else. I think in this game he made it. He turned it into a Asawira. Made me think that he had an Asawira. Daylami, normally you'd have more of these, but my opponent trying out some different attack vectors here. The Rajik Haqq, we'll see how he does this game. He turns out to be an interesting part of the game, but normally I feel like it's a bit too risky trying to drop one of these guys in at the back, because if your opponent has a lot of repeaters, a lot of flash bots and things, he might get hacked when he lands, which you don't want. Tuareg, I've always liked the Tuareg. I prefer the Tuareg Hacker, actually, because your opponent isn't likely to expect it, and also he's a very good fighter in the midfield with his shotgun, and the Whip 15 is amazing. The Sniper, it's just, I mean, it'll miss sometimes with BS11, and just one AP sniper rifle doesn't often get a lot done. But if you can catch somebody off guard, it is a powerful piece. The Nadir, on the other hand, is much better for snapping up those opportunities because of the BS12 and the more powerful gun. So, and the fact that he's a forward observer, I just can't believe that. So, again, a bit more of an undercosted unit here from Corvus Belli. Basher Bazook, Specialist Operative. I don't know about this. I prefer the cheaper version, SMG Chain Colt. But if you can make it work, great. Sometimes it's better to just deploy this in deployment zone and use the hollow projector. And of course the Motiwa, man after my own heart. I'm still a big, still hurting from how bad these guys were in N3. And even though Jammer's got nerfed a lot, I still think the Jammer is worth it. So I kind of like this piece. And the smoke grenades, of course, very useful for comboing with your Mukhtar. Cool, so let's get into the game. It is a game of recovery, so we talked about that. My opponent won the dice roll for first turn, despite me having a Marut with high willpower, so that was frustrating. I really want a first turn, because Vanilla Haqqislam really is the the most aggressive faction in the game, in my opinion, because of their access to impersonators and Daylamis and drop troopers and this and that. So that's where we got to, so my opponent deploying first. Okay, so on the right-hand side for his deployment, this Lasik here is actually a Hafsa rocket launcher. We have the Barid Hacker over here, heading up towards this objective, and the Mukhtar on the high ground above there. And towards the middle of the table, there's the Mukhtar we just talked about, and the Barid we just talked about, but he also has the Ghazi. This is his beacon that he'll be defending throughout the game. His lieutenant is over there. It's actually pretending to be the Asawira, and then there's the NCO Ghulam guy with the rocket launcher at the back. Further along here, that's where this lieutenant was, and of course you've got Zulika and a flash pulse spot in the right hand side corner. There's a bit of a closer look at her. Okay, so my deployment on the right hand side here, we're just bunching everybody up. This is really the only thing that's standing. This sniper's got a very long line through the middle of the table, and we've got the post-human engineer there ready to revive him. Now, I made a mistake here, which is unfortunately not a very forgivable mistake. I forgot that my Strategos let me have 2 reserve troopers, so committed my post-humans too early. I should have had them ready for after his reserve trooper. Anyway, I get total dogged immunity with my CSU. The link team is as follows: HMG, Standard Combi, Sniper, CSU, and Combi. We've got a baggage bot over here to act as a repeater, and another flash pulse bot here, and this post-human up the midfield is my hacker. You can also see a net rod in the right here. Another look over the top, so we just talked about the link team around through there. We've also got an Evo repeater, which can use either of the repeaters here to actually get assisted fire onto my sniper or HMG. My chain of command guy is up in the middle next to where my objective is. There's the lane that the sniper is covering. Through the middle, there's a bit of a top-down view of my chain of command, and on the left-hand side, my other post-human, this is the Mark V. We have a designated target there. And there's another flash pulse spot towards my deployment zone, and an AI beacon guy there, so that you can see the flash pulse spot. Did I just call him an AI beacon? He is an AI beacon, but that's the rule he has. It's actually called a net rod. Okay, so my opponent deploying a FIDE has to make a roll for this. Again, 25% chance that he'll not be able to do this and lose this, but the strategy that he's going with here is to have a lot of little things that he can attack me with, and that's why it's a good idea to try and take risks with FIDE and Rajiks, because if you flub the rolls for them, there are a lot of other things that he can attack me with. Having said that, there's a really good opportunity to drop shotgun blasts into clumped up models here, so I'm feeling quite afraid. My opponent, we talked about the fact that I should have been able to have a reserve trooper here, so my opponent graciously and kindly let me change the facing on my posthuman. I decided not to redeploy him somewhere else, but he let me, because realistically I would have been able to place the posthuman after the FIDE appeared, and the FIDE would have been going there anyway, so I just moved him around. So there you go, this is the new facing. My reserve trooper is actually the Marut. This model is not actually from Corvus Belli, it's from a different range, and I've converted it a little bit, but it is the Marut, and I'm wanting to put him in an area where he can quite easily come and attack me from that angle or through there. Not really through this big building here, but there's these two side angles, and the reason for that is that I want him to attack the Marut. I want him to spend his whole turn shooting at me, and even if he does kill it, like completely remove it, that means that I'll have the rest of my army to just hold the fort and push out and just pick away at him. And I don't really need the Marut to win the game. So long as I've actually held on to my position, I'll have the final turn. And the more time goes on, the more he'll actually run out of steam and run out of energy. And that tends to what happens to some Haqqislam lists. So they need to get the damage done early. And that's why I'm going to put him there. There's also a Warcore nearby too. And as you can see, the Marut can also see down the deployment zone at the impersonator at the top right there. So as soon as that impersonator reveals to drop shotgun blasts all over me, the explosive round from the HMG will respond to him, at least prevent him from spinning additional orders, assuming he dies. Okay, so we've got a impetuous move from the Motiwa to begin. I can't see him with anybody over here. So Zolika's moving out as well, just zooming up around the flank. Then he goes for dropping the Rajik, and he tries to drop him within 8 inches of my tag, and it looks like he's just in range. So again, this is something where he can quite easily fail the roll. My opponent does stick it and does land it, but you can imagine that this is a bit of a risk again, because you're spending the points and you may not get anything out of it. But game is on, because now he has a hacker within 8 inches of my tag. The Marut is BTS 9, but again, it's going to come down to luck and dice rolls, so we'll see how that goes. So my opponent goes for an Oblivion straight away and just slaps me with an Oblivion. And although this is painful, like this is a setback, I'm not too worried. It's not like I'm going to concede the game here, because the Marut can still ARO with his HMG, and anytime anything activates in front of him, he can try for a reset. He is whips 15 or 16 or something like that, so there is a chance of getting that reset off. So I'm not terribly worried about that part. I do get a dodge with my posthuman nearby over here, but he does manage to fail that, so can't really respond to the Rajik that's behind those boxes. So here's the tag's position. I'm trying to dodge with other things, but it doesn't really quite work. Now, my opponent actually kind of makes a bit of a mistake here and goes for a move with the FIDE. And he's actually deciding to ignore my link team, which surprised me. I thought that he would just lay down a couple of shotgun templates and leave it at that. But he's deciding to move out towards my objective just because he feels like it'll take me too long to discover him. And the problem with this is that I do have a couple of things that I can declare discovers with that aren't too important, like my flash pulse spot. The link team can delay, that's fine. And if he does reveal, I should be able to kill him. But the problem for him is that I now get a reset straight away with my my Marut for free. And the Marut actually successfully resets out of the isolation from the Rajik. So we're back again, which is not really the best outcome for Haqqislam. So here we are here. Note that this net rod can also declare a discover, because if I'm not mistaken, it actually has a willpower value. So, because it's a line troop and not deployable equipment... oh, no, it doesn't have willpower. Sorry. I think I might have... me and my opponent didn't look it up, so... I did get some discovers off with other units, but the point here is that the willpower actually is not... you can alert with a net rod, but not a discover, so I think we may have got that wrong. Okay, anyway, the FIDE continues across and eventually does reveal to put some smoke down and gets behind this wall over here. So happy days. Now the Marut, because by the way, he's out of line of sight of the Marut. So the Marut is sitting pretty. So the Rajik attempts again to isolate him and spends a couple more orders getting that through. So luckily beating me in those rolls. I do have a very high willpower value, but the Rajik's pretty good at that as well. So he does put me back into isolation state. And also towards the end of the turn, he's using his NCO order to try and lob a grenade long range speculatively, because why not? You know, NCO and your lieutenant. That doesn't work out though. And we sort of come back around to me with the Marut being here, and he does hide his Zulika back behind a box. Cool. So going through to my turn, I think this is my turn anyway. I have an opportunity just to take down a Sfide straight away with my rifle here from my CSU. So we're talking rifle and a good range band, BS-15 thanks to the link, 3 shots or 4 shots even. But unfortunately this didn't really work out, and the Fide put some smoke down, which was kind of frustrating, but it happens. He's got his Mukhtar up top, which is prone. I'm attempting to move out with my Posthuman Mark V over here, in line of sight of his Daylami, which is on top of a building. I should move my camera out of the way, and he then reveals his Nadir. So he's shooting at me with the Nadir there, and with the Daylami, and that's fine. I do want to try and bring these guys out of camo state. So I'd go for a dodge, but unfortunately I get smacked with crits from Flammen Spears and Panzerfaust and just die. But yeah, I was attempting to come after this Rajik, because if I kill the Rajik, then the tag can move to safety and get potentially repaired by my engineer. But that didn't happen. Posthuman dies. Well, not an important piece. So there's the Daylami trying to blow me up. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting assisted fire onto my Daylami sniper, who can move from the original position there over to another location where it does get line of sight into the Daylami, and quite easily sniping him from long range so that we don't have to deal with that Daylami any longer. Over here, unfortunately, my lieutenant's gone into isolated state, so the chain of command picks that up, so the Shurika's now my lieutenant, so I have to kind of avoid dying to this guy next turn. So moving around here with a flash pulse, that will help me to actually spot him if he comes to grab the objective, so that's one move that I'm making. Next up, I'm moving my engineer over towards the tag. She's 4-4 speed. For some reason when I started doing this I thought she was 6-4, but I was thinking of the Sophotect. Posthuman's not quite that fast, just has a lot of other good stats. So moving out along there, I also tried to move the Warcore in range to dodge around the corner so that he couldn't keep hacking me. So I eventually got into close combat with him. I did get targeted by the Rajik, hilariously, but that doesn't really matter. I just want to, stop him from continuing to hack me, so close combat does that. And then, of course, the tag, which unfortunately has been immobilized, I think on the last order from the previous turn. Trying to get my engineer near enough to it that it can actually repair it. I do have a tactical awareness order and an isolated irregular order to try and reset, but the states of isolation and immobilization stack, so it's at minus like 9 or 12 or something. So very unlikely for me to get it, and unfortunately I couldn't get it. And unfortunately I've got a Posthuman just standing out in the middle of nowhere. But next turn, if she's alive, she should be able to revive this guy. What I do want to do, though, is spend my orders on my current lieutenant, which is now moving over here. And it's just going to climb down because I can't really afford to go into lost lieutenant in my next turn. So that'd be bad. So the Shurika is just climbing down the wall and then just walking away. I think that he tried to snipe me at some point with his Tuareg, but finally I did pick up a bit of luck and avoided his sniper, and then fled away to safety behind this wall. So a bit risky, and we have also managed to reveal that Tuareg now, but it's worked out because the Shurika's come back here. Above all, I'm not really taking a lot of damage, and my opponent hasn't picked up my beacon yet and hasn't grabbed his objectives, so I feel like if I can just make it to turn 3 with a lot of stuff intact, I should be able to have a pretty strong turn 3. Also moving my flash bot out a bit. The reason why it's coming out to here is just to put another thing which can spot his Fide, and nothing which can actually catch a Rajik coming around the flank, and just getting somewhere where it's going to do a little bit more flashing. And as you can see here, just reshuffling my link team, I'm actually standing up with my HMG and my combi rifle guy here. Not with this guy, but these two down the bottom, just so they can catch Zulika as she comes past. And my opponent, doesn't have a lot of big guns in position. And to be honest, I'd rather he took a long-range firefight with me rather than actually coming in with his annoying trading off moves at close range. So back to Haqqislam, turn 2. Gazimotiwa moves out with Impetuous. Zulika also moving around here. That's his designated target that I'll have to kill at some point. And as Azrael, who's been nominated as the data tracker, going to be moving out as well, and possibly going after my tag and my designated target. So that's what he's doing, just moving out around towards the flank. So there's an HMG. He does want to avoid the HMG for a little bit, but there is one point where he has to cross the line of fire, and my little Dakini with his link team bonus and mimetism does do pretty well here, and that actually beats the Azrael long range, but Azrael tanks the armor saves and just uses the guts move to move into total cover, because he's moved around here, gets hit by the Dale Army about this point, and then uses guts to head back that way, and he ends up being fine. So continuing to move around, what the plan is here is to get his Azrael into close range of my designated target and pick up a point. So in he comes. There's also the tag in the distance there, so he'll have to contend with a stun pistol at close range, and the tag, of course, has been... I think he's been immobilized at this point, so it should be really easy to rip into the tag. What happens, though, hilariously, is that although he does a whole bunch of damage to the tag, the designated target wins the dodge and actually comes into close combat with him. So that's going to prevent him from spinning any more orders unless he wants to just churn away in close combat against this pink-clothed lady here. So kind of a hilarious outcome. Again, this model is very dangerous against that tag, and I believe just reduced him straight to unconscious with one volley, such as life. I mean, I'm armor 8 down to half armor of 4, plus 3 for the cover. I think he's got +1 damage or something like that. So again, you know, really good, powerful damage, but he's just got to win the face-to-face rolls. Although, having said that, it's a bit easier if your target is immobilized. So there you go. If I was shooting back at BS-15, that does make it extremely dangerous for him. Okay, so my tag is damaged, as you can see here. He's unconscious, but his Rajika's in close combat with my Warcore, so just trying to dodge away here, but my Warcore proving to be problematic. I believe at one point he does try moving out of the way of the Warcore and trying to hit me with a shotgun, but I managed to tank the armor saves. I had been unlucky against the Azrael, just failing pretty much everything, but the shotgun, unfortunately, doesn't have AP, so the tag... takes care of that. At least I think it doesn't have AMP, because it would have been a light shotgun, I believe. So yeah, rifle light shotgun, and I don't think light shotguns have the armor piercing ability. I might just check that. I'm pretty sure they don't, so I'll go through here. Light shotgun, yeah, so just normal ammunition. So that's why the Marut is much more likely to survive that. Cool. So over here, because he's actually in range of a... repeater, I've got my post-human revealing. This is happening as his Fide is re-impersonating, so hilariously he's located on the map, but when they look at the exact location that's been targeted, it appears to be an enemy friendly model, so that's kind of funny. So Fide just moving around here. Also Zulika trying to lob some smoke out in front of the Dakini Link team as she comes around the flank. Rajik over here, again, contending with the Warcore, killing him and trying to take out the tag as we discussed earlier. And then after Zulika lands some smoke, he brings in his Bashi Bazook, rifle light shotgun, just on the flank here next to my baggage spot, and is able to put them all into suppression fire. So that's pretty fun. I'll have to deal with that. I also have a Dakini, which is dodged around here a little bit more, just to try and take on Zulika. So long as she's at reasonable range, the Dakini will have an advantage there. Unfortunately for me, though, he found a way to get his Tuareg to snipe at this Dakini, so that was a bit of a mistake for me in terms of positioning. So Dakini does go down after the Tuareg's activated, and there we have it, post-human, Bashi Bazook, and baggage bot in the center. He's been stunned as he moves through with the Motiwa, but that will only last until the end of his turn, and then it's going to come back to me. So the smoke clears, and I have to think of a way to deal with these guys. So what's happening is I'm moving out with the Link team. This is a 4-man Link team. I'm initially moving up with my sniper so I can take on his Tuareg. Even though I'm only a 4-man team, the sniper kind of outclasses the Tuareg in the active turn because I've got assisted fire, I've got mimetism, I've got extra dice, so the sniper does take the Tuareg down. My engineer being right next to the tag, and because of remote presence, actually revives him and brings him back to a state where he's only lost 2 wounds, and then able to spend another order or 2 actually removing isolated state and removing immobilized, so the tag comes straight back into the game, which is amazing. What the tag is able to do, and I kind of want to avoid the rejig at this point, what the tag is able to do though is actually move out here and shoot at the close combat, which is hilarious. And the reason why I'm doing that is because any misses will kill my own designated target, giving him an ejector point, but he's going to kill it anyway. But any hits are going to be onto the Azrael. And the thinking here is that his Azrael is the data tracker, and if I can stop the Azrael from being the one who kills the designated target, that's going to mean that he gets only 1 objective point rather than 2 when it dies. So that was the plan there. Unluckily for me, I didn't get any hits onto the Azrael that he didn't save. So that was painful, but the tag is now a little bit further away from the Rajik. It's in a position where it can be shot at, but it's been revived a little bit, and I still have an engineer to repair it if needs be, so pretty happy with that outcome. I did need the orders to do other things with, though, otherwise I would have continued shooting at him. And again, I mean, I had to be careful because there still is a Rajik here, so if I move around back here to fire at this Azrael, I'm going to get hacked, which is not something I really want. So, Azrael is just popping back after passing an armor save. He's fine, and then we're moving out with the Link team. So the idea here is to move around with the HMG and get a shot into these guys. He's in suppression fire mode, but if he doesn't react now, I can just split my burst, so he decides to reveal the correct one, shoot back at me with an SMG, but again, the power of the active turn HMG with linked burst and mimetism is enough to grind down that Bashi. So we've shot him to death over there, and the game can proceed. So this is my final dash here, where, well, not my final dash, I believe this is turn 2 for me. So I'm just setting up my guys in more appropriate locations. We're taking on his Nadir from long range, that didn't quite work out. Trying to discover his FIDE on the steps there, that didn't quite work out. Just setting up better spots for everybody, and then heading out with the post-human hacker to take one of the consoles, just to put me on the board and put some more pressure on him for his final turn. So the post-human does capture that objective, then moves over to the cover of this wall nearby. So going to turn 3, that Azrael does move out, does actually take on the tag and take on the post-human. This point I can shoot back, and unfortunately I did get a bit unlucky here. I wasn't able to actually beat him in close in the face-to-face roll, and the Azrael just rips me in half. So the tag just dies here. The post-human is more lucky and dodges into total cover, but losing the tag in one volley is just something this guy's capable of. Don't jump on the forums or social media and start raving about how amazing he is. It does require you to roll dice. Sometimes you can have a good game with a piece like this, other times you can have terrible games. He's not as consistent as something like an Asawira in my opinion, but he's still very good and he's still worth taking sometimes. Just happens to have run into a really good matchup here. So the tag does go down, and the post-human ducks into cover. And then, of course, just able to remove him with a further volley of shots from the Azrael, and we're looking good. So that FIDE is now free and able to go after the objective, because the tag's not watching that spot anymore. So he does move around, gets out of line of sight of these Dakinis, and then he's able to pop some smoke. The tag's gone, so there's that. His Mortier was able to move around and really just taking one shotgun from my post-human. She does manage to survive that. But the FIDE, after it avoids my Link team, is able to just pop some smoke down, and there it is there, grab the objective, and then start running away. He is targeted, but unfortunately I don't have a smart missile bot, sadly. So he's just moving away, moving away. We're spending some coordinated orders. He's moving around with his Nadir and his his Bareed, people like that, and just generally running back to a spot where he's just going to be safe. He can also move out his forward observer Nadir here and actually grab this console. So at the end of the turn, he's going to get points for taking this, and it's really going to put a lot of pressure on me. There he is there, just hiding away, and it's going to be very hard for me to win. I might have to play for a draw here, just given the sad state of affairs. So I do want to point out, for this turn 3, the local gaming store was about to close. We had about 10-15 minutes left, if that. So I kind of had to rush things. We weren't very, we were a bit sloppy when it came to range measurements and calculating face-to-face rolls and things and positioning, but we eventually got there, and I made my final turn push. The Marut had gone down. I think during that game there was definitely a possibility of me keeping that Marut and winning the game with the Marut, and just because it didn't have a great game doesn't mean it's a good piece. Even in this game it kind of performed okay, and there are going to be some games where even against a army like this, the Marut's just going to thrive. But it comes down to the Link team of 4. They all start running out. Remember that CSU has dogged total immunity, which is very important right now. She moves around and is able to just trade off with this Motiwa. Shotgun versus shotgun, and the Motiwa goes down. Thank goodness. Didn't go dogged. Did the two wounds. So she's continuing to push around. There's an Adir around here. There's a like his Lieutenant Hafsa, but we're moving around, and thankfully the HMG managed to get into the right position to just grind everything down. So, I mean, I could have quite easily flubbed this. Something could have gone off in my face and had to use the rest of them, but luckily we continued to work our way around here through to the middle. There was a long-range shootout against a Flash Pulse, which we took down. I think there was a Hafsa around here. The Mukhtar is still prone, but eventually we have to take care of a Nadir and obviously a Fide and maybe even a Barid, and touch the button. So that's the plan here, just moving through. Combi rifle guy, what's my cam? Combi rifle guy just moving out through here, hitting the Fide, and then after that we're moving through and also taking on the Barid, and that gives me, I think, 1 or 2 orders to try and grab the console back at the end with the CSU. Her willpower isn't the best, but she does manage it, and it actually ends up being a draw because my opponent has killed my designated target and has got the 2 points from holding the beacon at the end of one of my turns, whereas I've picked up 2 beacons, and then my posthuman on the other side moves around and destroys his designated target. So I think it was 3 apiece, just looking at the scorecards here. I'll just bring up the mission again real quick. So my opponent had the enemy beacon captured at the end of his final turn. He gets 2 points there, but not at the end of the game. Didn't get it to his deployment zone. Neither of us prevented the enemy from capturing at the end of the game. We both got our opponent's designated targets. I got 1 for each antenna. He didn't kill a designated target with his data tracker. So it was a 3-3 draw. Pretty fun game, pretty close game, pretty sloppy game, pretty unusual game with all of the hacking and resetting going on. I felt like I'd made some mistakes there, especially with forgetting stuff around the double reserve trooper slot that I had. And my opponent, I think, made a real blunder with isolating my tag and then moving his Fide out around. But yeah, the good thing about that situation is that I could have dodged the tag in response to the Fide and maybe avoided the Rajik. Not sure if it would have had enough space to dodge, but again, you got to think about these things. But still really loving this OSS list. I think there's nothing about it that I would really change right now. Very strong list, makes the most of that Marut and the Dakini Link team, and still has a few of the things that you want, like the posthuman Mark 5 and Mark 2, and of course the Mark 1, just such good value. So I'm going to continue playing it, but also be playing my alt list sometimes. And I hope you guys got a little something out of this bat rep.